This is Mrs. Schultz, and in this video, I'll be talking about the Qin Dynasty. So we're jumping from Europe during the classical times over to the Far East during the classical times. The Qin Dynasty existed between 221 and 206 BCE. So we'll start there. On your website, there are some notes to go with this, so you can fill those in while you're watching the video. And remember, you can always rewind, fast forward, whatever you'd like. So we'll start with, let me make that full screen. We'll start with the rise of the Qin Dynasty. Prior to the Qin Dynasty, around 453 BCE, there were multiple dynasties, including the Qin. They all fought with each other to try to determine which would come out on top. The Qin Dynasty did. We call this time period the Warring States. So the Qin Dynasty took over. And like I said, they ruled from 221 to 206. This was the land that they ruled. They began the building of the Great Wall, which you can see up here, and we'll talk about that more in just a minute. The first emperor of the Qin dynasty was a man named Qin Shi Huangdi. He built the empire. He was very powerful, but he was also really cruel, and he had a lust for power. His ideology was one called legalism. So this is prior to the adoption of Confucianism in China. And his legalism, here's a quote: punishment should not be other than severe and definite, thus making the people fear them. And laws should not be other than uniform and steadfast, thus making the people comprehend them. The enlightened ruler uses his men's strength, but does not listen to their words, rewards them for their meritorious services, but always eliminates the useless. So you can see it wasn't a very kind philosophy. So some of those sort of bad things about the Qin dynasty, the opponents of the regime were punished or executed. Books were burned, so they did engage in active book burning. You can see these people are being thrown into a pit here. Um, Scholars who questioned policies were buried alive. So that's what this painting is depicting here. They didn't want people to be too smart or too creative. They stressed hard work, discipline, frugality, and forbade travel. So under the Qin dynasty, the scholar class, the intellectual class, was really nearly eliminated. They were just killed. Some of the good things of the Qin dynasty: they did abolish slavery. They allowed people to own private land. They adopted a uniform law code that applied to all. Now, like we've looked at, the laws weren't always great, but they applied them equally, I suppose. They standardized Chinese language and writing, so all Chinese people were using the same alphabet, for example, the same form of writing. They did the same for measurements, so everybody was using kilometers, for example. They had a single currency, which made it easier to trade goods. They built lots of roads, and they began construction of the Great Wall. And agriculture was the basis of the state and the economy, so they encouraged farming. The Great Wall was also called the Wall of 10,000 Li. It was built because nomadic people, armed horsemen in the Gobi Desert to the north, became threatening to northern China. So you can see up here, here's the desert. It was built to keep them out, but most of today's wall was built about 1,500 years later under the Ming Dynasty. So here's a picture from 2006 of the Great Wall of China. This is some writing under the Qin Dynasty, a bronze plaque. Here's some of the towers of the Great Wall. If you've seen the movie Mulan, you'll probably remember these. They set fires in the towers, and then the next tower would see the fire and would set a fire. And it was a way to communicate an emergency of some kind. The eastern end of the Great Wall is in Xi'an, China, which is a famous ancient city. Okay, actually, I'm wrong about that. I'm thinking about the Silk Road. Sorry. So this is in Shanghai Pass. Shi Huangdi. So the ruler of the Qin Dynasty, when he died, before he died, he commissioned the building of these terracotta warriors. And these were not discovered until the 1970s. So he was buried along with this army of warriors. made out of clay. And what's interesting about these, so they're still uncovering them. We haven't found them all yet. It was a farmer in the 1970s who was digging in his field and discovered them. Their faces and hairstyles are all relatively unique. So they think that the each of the warriors was actually modeled after someone who is really alive at the time. But they're pretty incredible to see, and you can see how the excavation work is going on. They also had horses and carriages made out of clay with them as well. Here's an example of a cavalryman with the proper uniform and the horse. They also found that, some individual soldiers, some of the details, individual tombs. They also buried people alive with the emperor. And this is in his mausoleum, some of the terracotta warriors. So, why did the Qin dynasty fall? The country was in turmoil, the people were exhausted, the treasury was drained, and they had so alienated the educated upper class. Once your economics are bad, the people were exhausted because they were working so hard at agriculture and building the Great Wall and all that. So, but once the economy starts to go bad, we really often see the end of civilizations. So we'll get to the Han Dynasty next. Finish up the notes on the Qin Dynasty and go to the website. I'll show you. Go to the website and go to the next assignment, which is a primary source assignment called What Caused the Fall of the Qin Dynasty. You can print at home or get a copy of me if you're in class. And then go to the next video, which is on the Han Dynasty. Thank you.